Hey y'all, it's Michael, and during November, BookTube does the collective Nonfiction November, which is so much fun. I did do a TBR video, so check it out here. I'll link it here and down there, I believe, wherever it's going to be. So you can see the TBRs and the upcoming books that I will be talking about. So I thought I was like, which ones I'm going to start off first? So I thought I would start off with a medium size, then a big one, and then a small one in the middle, probably around like Thanksgiving, because I know I won't be able to read as much. And check out that TBR video because it also coincides with the keywords and the prompts that and the reasons why I chose the books. So the first one is No Visible Bruises: What We Don't Know About Domestic Violence Can Kill Us by Rachel Louise Snyder. Again, check out that TBR on why I picked this because it coincides with an anime that I'm watching right now. But this is basically about domestic abuse. I think it's gonna be a really interesting read. If anything, it's gonna be hard hitting. Usually what I do with these reviews is I'll give you my first impression and then the middle point, and at the end I'll let y'all know what I think about it overall. So yeah, let's go. Y'all, so I'm on page 148 of No Visible Bruises. What We Don't Know About Domestic Violence Can Kill Us by Rachel Louise Snyder. So I'm halfway through this, and because it's essentially 300 pages, so I'm halfway through this. So I thought I would give you my thoughts before I reach the conclusion. So, I'm on the fence about this because there are things that I really enjoy about it, but there is one thing that is really irking me, and it makes it hard to actually read the rest. So this is about Snyder, who's looking at different cases and basically talking about domestic violence. So in the previous clip, I also want to mention that I called it domestic abuse. It's more reading more up on it. It really is the right proper term would be more domestic violence. So I apologize for that, but yeah, so there's that. One of the things that Snyder decides to do is actually gender the situations, which I thought was really interesting. But the reasoning Snyder did it, I thought would be more. I actually was like, oh, okay, I could really see that because Snyder gives more of the abusers the he pronoun, and then the victims more of a she pronoun, and so I thought that was like really interesting dichotomy. I guess it would be more of a like bigger book, like way bigger book. The stories are really heartbreaking. There are some parts in here that is like, wow, like physically, like just mentally, just so hard to read. Especially things with like kidnapping, because it's presented in a way that is like so just like in your face, and it a lot of the times there's no context to it. Bam, there, like he kidnapped her and then he burned the car and like shot her. I was like, whoa, this is it's hard to take in. The one thing that I am really disliking about this is the writing style. I do not like it at all. And that's just a personal preference for me. So Snyder writes in a way that I the way a writing style is for me personally is that there's this cadence, there's this syntax, there's this rhythm, there's this flow that like incredible writers have their own stamp on it. And when great writers, like I feel I really like, it's like there's this flow to it. It's so hard to explain because it's like a personal thing for me, but there's this flow to it that I can really jive with. And with Snyder's writing, I'm not really liking it. Snyder writes in this way that is very like staccato, very short. I wouldn't say concise, but like it has this like very small, short way to it. The closest probably like great author I can think of is probably like McCarthy, but it's like being really generous. I don't want to be mean, but that's very generous because McCarthy writes in this way. Like it's very short, very minimalistic, and I feel as though Snyder is kind of trying to do that, but I don't think it's succeeding as well. If y'all hear slurping noises, that's my dog. But I also feel like this writing style really puts some sort of barrier to the story because I wish the writing style and with because that coincides with the storytelling was just more direct, because there are moments in here where the writing, it just seems like it's doing too much, and it, for me anyways, it doesn't do a service to the stories being told. And this is one also thing that is a personal preference for me. I really don't like it when writers do this, is when they use pronouns so much within a flow of a paragraph. It really irks me because just the constant use, like he, she, them, they, like he, the, and then it's this flow, and it really I really don't like it. And there are so many instances of that writing that I don't want it to sound I don't want it to sound like I don't want it to sound like I'm coming off like a jerk, because this is dealing with a topic that is very sensitive. And I get that, but for me the writing is very important. Because this is a novel and I feel like though writing is what you're using to paint the picture, and I feel as though the writing is not servicing the it's not servicing that, unfortunately, for me anyways. Now the part that I am getting at, I think it's actually really interesting because it's sectioned off into three parts, and so it's basically the which is like the opposite of like what it would normally be, would be the end, the beginning, and then the middle. End I thought was really interesting, but I think the beginning is where like the topic wise is going to get more like more dig. Middle part, we'll just call the end, I guess, is more of like the recovery, I guess, of, because this time around she's looking at the abusers, which is really interesting, and how they are trying to get back into society and like what that looks like. So I'll talk more about that in my final thoughts. But so far right now, y'all, the writing style is, I'm just not really grooving with it, and so it's taking, because it's only 300 pages. That's not a lot, and it's taking me longer than usual because it's just, I don't know. I'm just not flowing with it. Right, so okay, I'm gonna do another check-in before I actually finish this. But yeah, I'm not liking this at all. I am on page. At this point right now, I'm on page 231, and I don't like this at all. The writing is, it's really not my favorite. I'm not really liking this at all. Not only is the writing not my favorite, like the writing style, but parts of this I was like, why did the editor edit this? Because like it, I don't know. For me anyways, it seemed a little, I don't know, careless, I guess you could say. Listen to this. So this is about at this point Snyder is visiting a facility, and so she can't name like specific things about it. But she's talking about a certain case. She does. So it says on here, for example, there is a case where an abuser threatened to break CDs and slit his wife's throat with them. Seems incredibly specific, identifiable to a certain couple, but as it turns out, Dune sees this particular threat frequently. And then she puts in parentheses as though as an aside, and it says, though presumably less often with the advent of streaming, ... which I realize sounds a little ridiculous, but it also is probably true, period. Spotify saves lives. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm being like a curmudgeon, but I feel as though like maybe the editor, whoever or something, would have been like, that's a little bit not sensitive. Like, don't y'all think that's not sensitive? Like, this is like these are people's lives, and I don't know, something about I don't know. That's just one example. Like sometimes Snyder would do this thing where she puts like her own personal feeling, or like try to liven up the atmosphere. But I don't know. I don't like that. I don't know. It doesn't seem sympathetic for me personally. Like this is someone who's literally threatened to be cut, and they will die. And just like these little statements about like Spotify saves lives, like, come on, man. Like, it needs to be a little bit more serious. Like, come on. So I finally finished No Visible Bruises, What We Don't Know About Domestic Violence Can Kill Us by Rachel Louise Snyder. In regards to the previous clips that you saw previously, my stance on this book still stands true. There are things that I did enjoy about it, but overall, I really didn't like this. This basically is Snyder looking at domestic violence and about how it's being looked at today. And that's probably my favorite part about this, is the look at how it is treated within the system, essentially like right now, what people are doing and how it can be improved upon, and then all the different nuances as of today of how it's being looked at and what other people are trying to do to prevent it and to stop it, to basically get the victims more help. but for me personally, that's where it ends about more of the liking. As you saw, I never, as I read along, I never progressively enjoyed the writing style. I really didn't like it. I thought it was one of those, like, the writing style felt try hard. One thing that I was expecting, I don't know if I was supposed to be expected, but I thought maybe Snyder would talk more about, because she does a little bit explore the dichotomy between, like, this masculinity of how most of these, because she's mainly, it's more of a heteronormative relationship between a man and a woman. So I thought it was, and while other types of relationships, while she X'd it out of in this book, which in hindsight does make sense, because it in my opinion, it makes the focus of the book more streamlined. But I felt as though when she does that, if she were going to do that, and that was her goal, I felt as though it should have expanded more, because Snyder doesn't really even talk about, like, more of the back end and more, like, of the psychology about, like, what makes men do this, like, what, and while it's like a little bit dabbling about the feminine masculine toxic masculine toxic masculinity. I felt as though, like, it was never delved into more the philosophy behind it, like what makes people do this, more of that. So, and I also thought, like, maybe more of the history in regards to that. I felt as though there weren't enough history. Yeah, I thought there should have been more. But I think the one thing that I really didn't like about this, as you saw, like, the part where I mentioned about that Spotify comment, but also, like, just the overall tone, because it's, like, also one of those things where I am, if you know me, I am, like, I don't really take things seriously. I'm more of a jokester than anything. Like, life is too serious to, life is already hard to take it so serious. But I know that I know when to turn that off. I know when things should be serious and when have more, like, gravity to it. And there are some comments in here that I, not only just the Spotify thing, but also just, like, didn't make sense. There's a part in here where she visits a prison and the guards, and she talks about how the guards are gay. But then she also makes this little comment about, like, her, and I was just like, I don't know. I just felt like tonally wise, it was all over the place. And I felt like that. Personally, for me, I felt like as though it should have been even more serious. Alright, so the next book that I decided to read, just because I'm a little bit behind on my reading schedule, and so I thought I would catch up with Rough Magic, Riding the World's Loneliest Horse Race by Laura Pryor Palmer. I'm already on page 157, so I thought I would give y'all my first thoughts about this until the next time when I reach the end. Overall, I'm liking this so far. So this is about Pryor Palmer, who basically decides to join the Mongolia Derby, which is in Mongolia, and it's this huge, long derby race. Basically, the way it works is that you have these things called tour. Yeah, but basically she goes through stations and going around basically Mongolia, and so, like, she would start off with a horse, and then they would go to the next station. She would switch the horse, and then go to the next station. She would switch the horse. This is very interesting. I don't know what to make of it, because it's really interesting because, like, when someone is on this horse race, like, it's not in the race that you would think about horse races and getting from one point to one point from another. It seems very hard, and there are moments in here where it goes back and forth between her life in England and her life as she's currently in the race right now. So it's like going back and forth, which I think actually works pretty well because it correlates on how she's she's looking at life and how she's perceiving life through this race. The one thing that I found is, like, it's one of those situations where she just decides to join and then we're gonna see what's gonna happen. But if anything, y'all, I'm on page 157, and I'm not gonna lie, it is not, I'm gonna say it, but it's not what I'm meaning it to come up across, but it's very tiring. Like, it just seems so long. Like, oh my goodness. So I finally finished Rough Magic, Riding the World's Loneliest Horse Race by Laura Pryor Palmer. Overall, I would have to say I'm in the middle about this. I thought it was okay. And I don't have at the end, I really didn't have any like strong feelings to like, oh my gosh, read it, or strong feelings of like, I didn't really like it. The writing, I was like up and down about it. The way the writing works, it goes back and forth. It's like how a teenager would think. Well, how I think a teenager would think anyways. So it has this like scatterbrain, not really like thinking about it, which is actually like really cool because it gets in the mind of Pryor Palmer. So I thought that was like really great. That is also a hindrance in my opinion, because there are also, in regarding to that, there are moments in here where it's just, I was like, okay, come on, let's like, I just felt like there were moments where it could get to the point. And also because she is so young, I'm not gonna lie, there were moments in here where I personally felt, I was like, wow, like, I don't know what, I guess the word I would use without being like too critical, it was like a bit of feeling of entitlement, and also like not niceness, I guess you could say, like essentially not nice. Yeah, they're like, I don't know, it there's that. And I just like, okay, I mean, I guess that is part of our experience. So it's always so hard to talk about like memoirs and whatnot, because since the person is writing it themselves, this is how they felt, this is how they view things, and this is how they perceive the moments going through. And you can't really fault someone for that. It's because that's how they perceive it. But can you critique it is like always the balance for me anyways. And in regards to the writing, there, like I mentioned like earlier, there are just parts where it's just like, it felt like a slog. It's so, I was like, oh man, I felt like there were parts in here where it could have just been like, we could have moved. Favorite nonfiction? I'm not gonna lie, I don't think this will be like on the top. It just really, I personally didn't felt this like connection that I was just like, wow about it. But I think it's just, for me, it's always so hard to talk about a book that's, I always give 3 stars or like feel so indifferent about, like literally in the middle. So yeah, there's that. I don't have that much to say about it. Yeah, there's that. In conjunction, check out the next video because I'm thinking the way it's going to be edited, that's going to be my last part. But in the next video, check out the remaining of my TBR for Nonfiction November. And I'm going to start with Becoming Dr. Seuss, Theodore Giselle, and the Making of an American Imagination by Brian J. Jones. So if you read those 2 previous books that I talk about, let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. Until then, I'll see you guys till next time. Bye.